PLD Projects presents Holy Snokes, the Star Wars podcast, featuring PLD and Matty Gunner. May the Force be with you, always. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Holy Snokes, the Star Wars podcast, our first episode post the Acolyte. I am your host of PLD, and this, of course, is my sidekick, the hairy one, the man with the scream, the man of 1,000 screams, I think I should say. Matty Gunner, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, mate. Just tired. It's a long week. It just seems like this week is dragging on, especially with it being fight week, big fight week in Manchester for the UFC. A lot of British talent on there, some good friends of mine on the card. So I'll be in Manchester for that, as well as Radar Festival. I'll be there for that. I'll be walking around. I'm there for Tesseract. I'm not performing. It's not our kind of a fest, but I will be there just walking the crowd, kissing hands, shaking babies, and
Sounds like a normal week for you there, Matty, actually.
A lot of kissing hands and shaking babies. Yeah, I do. Yeah, that does tend to happen quite a bit. And
well, there now you heard it here, folks. You heard it here,
kind
folks.
of over it, and it hasn't even started yet. How are you? You've had a pretty
it's been a little bit of a
weeks.
week. Yeah, I mean, first of all, you just heard here first, Matt. You know where to find Matty now this week, so go find him and harass him and shake him and kiss him. But yeah, my week's definitely been a little bit interesting as well. Of course, if you saw my Twitter feed, I had a little bit of a hard break. My wife tried to rescue a kitten who was thrown out of a fucking car window, like moving car door, and I was like, "What the? I don't understand people. I don't understand who could do that." And we struggled to save her. We brought her back a few times. Unfortunately, it ended up being a little too much, and we did have to put her down after a week. But it was heartbreaking, absolutely. But I will say, I'm glad we do it. We would do it again in a heartbeat, because that's we love animals. We love cats, we love dogs, and all that kind of thing. And I like to say, I try to look at it positively and say, you know what, that cat's last day would have been thrown out a car and dying on the side of the road. At least we got it back, and he got a week more love, a week more cuddling, and a week more all that kind of jazz. So we understood love and understood, what is good in the world at times before he went on. I mean, it's just the way I have to think about it, because otherwise, heart breaks.
Yeah, but I mean, I can't remember where I read it. I read some book, some psychology book when I was in college. Of like, we're taught throughout our lives to be able to deal with the loss of like our loved ones, like humans. Like, it's something that we can process. There is no like answer, but there's no process or anything you can go through when it's an animal. It's the most. And I said it on Twitter, but I want to say it to you here personally. What you and your better half did was an incredible thing, and you deserve what you've been. I've told you this off camera. I'll tell you on camera. What you did was an incredible thing, and it truly showed that you and your family are good people, man. Like, truly good people, and it makes me proud to be your friend.
I appreciate that in every way, shape, or form. I try to think of that way. It's just I hope everybody else would do. I do hope everybody else would try to do it as well. And I think it's the right thing to do, and I try to live my life that way. And this just felt like the right thing to do. So hopefully more people will do that as well. We're going to foster kittens, and we've actually started the idea of fostering kittens anyway. So that'll hopefully continue that. It is funny, like I mean, said, like we had her for a week and still it was shattering. Like it's amazing how quickly they can kind of claw their way into your heart,
right?
Their pattern their way into your heart. But
I don't think I'd be able to foster animals, because that would mean like having to give them up at some point. I'd just be like, no. One day I just want to buy a shitload of land and just take them all, take in all the dogs, take in all the cats, like Ace Ventura.
Yep.
Like, instead of the apartment scene, just like have all this massive bit of land and just let them run around.
Dude, I gotta tell you, you say that. My wife's wanted to foster for a little while now. And I've been a little hesitant for the exact same reason, because I know there's going to be a foster fail here and there, as they call it. I didn't know what that was, but that's what I heard later on. There's a thing as a foster fail, where you foster and you fail to foster because you take them in. I think there probably will end up being us a few times. despite the fact that we already have a jungle here. But hey, you know what? Again, they give a lot to me as well. I love that. I love the animals are like they're comforting. They're sweet. They're unrequited love. So you can't get that even with any human, even like your best humans. Like it's just that animal looks at you and it's like just complete non-judgmental love about anything. Like don't judge me about anything, pretty much. But anyway, that was my week, my stressful week there. But it is what it is. We've moved on. But that's not what we're here to talk about. It's not a pet week. This is not Holy Pets. This is not Holy Manchester, not Holy UFC. This is Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast. And we have an interesting, fun little topic. We decided last week, we kind of were like, well, I don't know what we're doing now. We had our main topic for the last 7 weeks there with the Acolyte episodes. It's, doesn't plan anything. Just do an Acolyte 1.01, 0.03, 04, 05. Yeah. So what are we going to talk about now besides the news, which we always, of course, drop some news and break some news as we can. And we thought it would be after the Acolyte, which was so kind of, I don't want to say dour. I mean, it just wasn't a very humorous series. There wasn't a whole lot of humor in there. Some moments, but like...
Other than Basil.
We'd dive into a little bit of the less serious and more maybe silly. Every Star Wars film in the prequel series, original trilogy, the sequel trilogy, and even some without, they try to do it. They have a crawl. So we wanted to think. I wanted to look at these crawls and say which ones are my favorite. Not the movie. It's not the best movie of the
crawl.
It's the actual crawl, and I had to decide what that means. I didn't even tell you what I thought it meant because I figured I'd let you come up with your own definition. I looked up in my head and I went, I want to see which crawl. Is it more about like what it sets up the movie to do, or how excited it gets me, or is it just a great piece of dialogue in and of itself? And I went through all the 9 movies in the Skywalker saga. I took a look at all the other side pieces. I even looked at like Ahsoka because it technically had a crawl, and the Acolyte even technically had a little bit of a crawl. We're going to talk about each of our favorite 3 crawls this week.
And this was a challenging one because I'll be honest, I've never paid a lot of attention to the crawls. Like, to me, they were always just like the little piece to set up the movie. Then we get into the meat of it. In fact, anytime, and I'm going to hold you and PJ to account for this.
Okay.
In the Schmodown, anytime, like I'd be playing along with the Star Wars matches that I do, as you have been in a Zoom call, as you have seen me and our friend Zach do.
Yep.
Anytime a question about a crawl would come up, I would curse your entire bloodline.
You would.
Because I was just like, fuck, I never memorized this shit.
You're not alone. Most of the Star Wars competitors would also curse us as well. I know Sean Sullivan, for example, hated our crawl questions. Sorry to out you, Sean, on that one. And I get why, but hey, there's a lot. We had a deep dive to get more questions in the Star Wars universe after a couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, I got the elevator question in the Revenge of the Sith. So
there you go. I think it's funny. I don't know if this is reason why, because I always kind of knew the crawls, but as I had children growing up, it became kind of a tradition when we watched the Star Wars movie. I would always read the crawl out to them, like kind of like almost like the voice in the Clone Wars, like kind of thing. And they kind of just got to be this like tradition habit. I still my kids are 18, 20, and 23. They still want me to do it when it's on, and I'm like, all right.
Did you do it in the voice?
I do it in the kind of a voice, not quite the British accent, but it's like along those lines. It's very serious, and it's a time of civil war. I'll just go out there being crazy because that's how I do it. Who knows? Maybe I'll read one when we get there. But before we do that, we are going to talk about some breaking news in the Star Wars galaxy.
Breaking news? We have breaking news?
Not really. I mean, it's breaking news as far as compared to last week. So it's all the news we got from last week up until now, really. Technically, it's breaking as far as we're concerned. But then we'll do that, and then we'll get into our main topic. Basically, we have a couple of different things to talk about. We'll save the big one for the end, the biggest one for the end. First off, we're going to talk a little bit about something we don't talk about very often, and that's usually my fault. The video game side of Star Wars. Now, I am admittedly not been a gamer since like the Knights of the Old Republic 2. That was like really the last Star Wars game I really seriously played. I mean, I played Battlefront here and there, but I just never was a gamer. I stopped gaming, and that was it. So I mean, I love.
Are we just talking Star Wars games or games in general?
Mostly games in general. I stopped gaming. Last game I really played was Lord of the Rings Online.
You have missed so much good shit, dude.
Well, that's the problem though, because I get so addicted to it, like it would literally take up my entire life. So like I had to go cold turkey. I am playing older Mario and Luigi games because my son wants me to play with them, and so I've started playing like Mario and Luigi, like their role playing game things they do, and Brotherhood's coming out this year. I'm gonna play that when that comes out because he wants me to play and everything else, which is cool. I love it, but I think I love those games more. I kind of love the simple games more, where it's kind of like I just fuck around for a little bit and you win, and it's not like the 5, 6, 7, 8 hour commitment to something.
I would love to play Squadrons with you one time, just to see how you do on a game of Squadrons.
I'd probably have a blast. I did like playing Battlefront with my brother. My brother and I used to play. We never like played much. We just kind of like throw it on there. We just beat the
So Squadrons take the space battle out of the old school Battlefront.
Mm-hmm.
That is the entire of the game. Is just the space battle.
That's pretty cool. I mean, I
like the old Ace Combat games, but set in Star Wars.
I mean, I'm not going to say I haven't been tempted. Every time a Star Wars game comes out, I'm kind of like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. That'd be kind of cool. I just get worried because Latro basically took over my life for like a good year. I'd be like, you know, I can't watch that movie with you, kid. I've got a treasure to win, or I have a guild to help. Kind of thing. It's got too much, admittedly. But Star Wars Outlaws is one that actually does tempt me a little bit. I like the idea of where it takes place, when it takes place. I like the character design. I like the idea. And what came out today, or actually, not today, a couple of days ago now, but from Star Wars Newsnet, is something that makes me even more tempted because it reminded me of the old Knights of the Old Republic in a way. The headline was Star Wars Outlaws lets you mess with a system to craft your own Star Wars adventure. A big feature of Star Wars Outlaws is going to be the ability to increase and decrease your reputation with the game's 4 syndicates. The Empire will act as like a Grand Theft Auto style wanted system. You know, if you break the law, the Empire will send stormtroopers after you. But depending on your reputation with the people, like the other crime syndicates might help you, or they might decide they're going to go after you too. And then if all of them go after you, you're basically living on borrowed time. Makes it for a difficult adventure. You almost like set a difficulty level, but like not do it at the beginning. You have to do it yourself with what you do in the game. So what you do in the game sets your difficulty level. And if you like screw everybody over, and everybody's gonna be coming for you. You got the hardest game you're gonna have to play. You're gonna be dodging people left and right. That kind of thing does speak to me some way. I kind of loved it when I played Knights of the Old Republic, where you'd be able to like. I played through both ways. I played through saying every correct thing the light side would say, and then I went back and played it the most like prickish way you could play the game, by like insulting everybody and screwing everybody over, just to watch and see how it went. I love both. I love doing that. It was kind of a cool thing. That's a cool addition to the game. So this kind of thing does make me a little bit maybe more like wanting to check it out, or maybe I don't know. What do you like that kind of thing? Is it something that appeals to you, or is it?
It depends. Some games do it really, really well. Some games do it well. It's difficult because if there's no actual consequences to the storyline, a lot of these like faction sort of games really pass me by. The one game that really did it well for me was Fallout 4. Fallout 4 had a really good one where you pick to either side with the Brotherhood of Steel or the Institute, and whichever one you choose impacts not only the ending of the game, but where you can go in the map going forward, how your relationships with certain characters are, and stuff like. I like it when there is actual like real consequences, not just to the game's story, but to the actual gameplay. Like, for example, Fallout 4, for example, if I sided with the Brotherhood of Steel, I wouldn't be able to go into a area that was heavily populated by the Institute without getting shot at.
Right.
So, things like that. And we've known that this is going to be a thing for a little while, that if you side with Crimson Dawn, you'll be, wanted more by the Pikes and things like that. So I'm curious to see how it affects, if there is any like consequences within the story. I know speaking about Kojima when he did Metal Gear Solid 4, he used to want to set it out so like if you engage in fighting within a certain country, that country turns on you, and then if you go into another country like that, on the other side, it will like escalate your standing with them. And there's so many ways you can play with it in games, but I've never really found a game that like it really affects the consequences of the story as
Okay.
well as the gameplay. So I'm
Well,
curious to see how Outlaws does it, but it's such a hard thing to do.
interesting. You said this quote might be for you then. The lead system designer Matthew Lyle in the same article stated, he said, quote, early on, we knew that we wanted to tell a strong story. So we didn't want 5 different endings. We wanted some continuity to Kay's story. But at the same time, we wanted a strong element of choice in the game. And we felt like navigating the different syndicates, playing them against each other, betraying them, and being betrayed yourself, sometimes was like the most scoundrelly thing that we could do to offer an element of choice. That's kind of the inception of the reputation system. But that as a foundation, we connected reputation to so many different things.
Okay.
I don't know.
We'll see.
See. Well, I know you're going to play it, so I'll let you.
Yeah. Maybe I'll play it live on the channel or something. If we can sort that out. I'll do like live streams. I know I did a couple on my Twitch channel for Survivor, but maybe we can talk and maybe link up StreamYard to here, and
that'd be awesome. I'd be all for
Well,
that.
yeah.
Let's do it. All right. Let's talk about the next bit of news we got there. It is we did end the Acolyte this week, of course. And there were some conversations with different people afterwards, including Manny Jacinto, but most importantly, Leslie Headland. And I had some interesting conversation bits that I wanted to touch base with you on. The main headline of the story was that Leslie Headland regrets not expanding on Vernestra Rowe's story. She's saying that it was one of the few characters with a sizable backstory going into the show, and some fans were disappointed at how little we got to see of this fan favorite character, particularly when it comes to understanding her change in persona from the books. And she stated, that was something I kept trying to slip in, but there was so much. It's a really packed season, and I love that. My goal was to explore as many nooks and crannies as I can in the time I'm given. And Star Wars is the perfect place to do that because there's nothing but good nooks and crannies. All of this world that's available to you that you can dig into. So, of course, there were things I didn't get to explore. She did mention that, because I can't confirm or deny that it's something we're thinking about, but I think if we're allowed to continue telling the story, you'll see more of Vern's history with the stranger and how it's affecting the decisions she's making now. Okay. And let me go on. Well, I have a couple more quotes about it, and we can talk about them as a whole. She also mentioned, while there was some regret over Vernestra Rowe, Leslie was very happy with the 2 big cameos in the season finale in Darth Plagueis and Yoda, 2 appearances that would also be setting up some enticing storylines in a possible second season. She says, quote, if I couldn't do Plagueis or Yoda, I think that would have been a real heartbreak. I think it sets up the future storytelling that could be really compelling. We wanted to answer a lot of questions. We wanted to show Kamir's master. We weren't going to wait for a second season for that. We wanted to wrap up the twin storyline. We were not going to leave everybody hanging. They've sat through all of this, and we want to reward people for watching. The dangling of other stuff, especially the legacy stuff with, like, what's Manny's name, Yoda.
What did she say about Kamir's master?
We wanted to show Kamir's master. That's what she said.
There we go. That answers one of the big fucking questions.
That's right there. So
thanks, Leslie. Cool. Don't even need to watch season 2 now. Thanks. Fuck's sake. Save me going in blind for that one. Cheers.
Well, I mean, I think it was kind of, well, that's what she said. She said the dangling of other stuff, especially the legacy stuff, like what's Manny's name, Yoda, Plagueis, and what the background is with Vernestra and her relationship with the Senate, and how's that going to unfold with this sort of internal review of the Jedi? Where does that lead? So it was a lot of how is this going to fit into later what we see? That was a step I wanted to say for the tease, as well as Osha and the stranger's relationship. Felt like that was a really good thing to tease as well. Mostly, I need a full season for that. She also finished up by saying, she was talking about how excited she was and how happy she was doing it. She said, it's such a triumph for me that in the making of, there was no part of me that was like, I'm not going to fight for something. I'm going to get fucking Cortosis in there no matter what. I'm going to get Amanda in there doing her own action, which she'd never done before. And she stepped the hell up in order to do that. I got to do a corruption arc. I got to do a female character who was choosing darkness and evil, which is honestly my brand. But then I got to do it in this world. And last bit I do want to mention in a different interview, she mentioned something, which was that the Plagueis cameo was initially slated to be at the end of the episode. Like I initially had said would have been a better idea. And she said that she didn't want to end it like that because her idea was that she basically had the idea that the stranger, Kamir, and Osha would be standing out looking at the suns, like that we saw with the hand holding, then you'd see Plagueis behind. And that'd be too much like saying, oh, Plagueis has been pulling the strings the whole time. and it would take away from the Osha Stranger bit and be too much of a gotcha moment in a way. So that's why she wanted to do it earlier on.
Makes sense.
Don't necessarily agree with her, but I understand her thought process. I get her thought process, but I still prefer it the other way around myself. But so what are your overall thoughts about everything, about the whole idea about Vernestra, about, Plagueis and Yoda? What do you think?
Well, that last point, I get it, because there's so many people that are like, you filmed this angling for a season 2 that you might not even get. I think if she did do that, that would just fuel the fire of that conversation, and I think that's a conversation that doesn't need to be had. I'm all for Renew the Acolyte. I'm all for, Leslie getting to continue this story that she wants to tell, and I actually agree. I agree that I think leaving Plagueis where he was a smart decision, because there are a lot of people that are saying, oh, you just threw him in there because you want a second season. No, she threw him in there because he's a good part of the story to tell. And she probably was told, you can use Darth Plagueis. If you tell me I am able to use Darth Plagueis in a story, I am going to use him. If you tell me, if I was writing a Star Wars story and you said, May, you can use more. You can have more for a cameo. Go for it. You telling me I'm not?
Of course.
What kind of an idiot would I be if I didn't?
Of course. Oh, it makes sense, because Plagueis is obviously there as a timeline. That's what they're setting up, and that's cool. I have no problem with the Plagueis cameo in general. I just didn't like the execution,
the positioning of it. Yeah,
it seemed kind of weird, because like I said, it just made me think like, oh, he's supposed to come back at the end now, right? Because that's why you put him here like early on in the episode, and then to not have him come back just felt a little weird. I get why she does it, and quite frankly, I don't think it's just for season 2. It does make sense to kind of like, because he is in that timeline, he would be involved in this kind of scenario. I totally get that. I totally agree with that. The only other aspect I understand this part more is you couldn't have Plagueis really be introduced any more than a cameo in this show, because once Plagueis gets introduced in any kind of meaningful way, it becomes the Darth Plagueis show. It becomes, this is what we are leading from Darth Plagueis. Like Darth Plagueis would overpower the idea, because everybody's looking at, oh, this is the guy who mastered Palpatine. This is an important guy, instead of focusing on what she wanted to focus on, which were the twins.
You know what I love for her to do?
What's that?
Remember how I talked about Plagueis showing up at the end and killing Khmer?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Do that in season 2. Don't use him till the end. Do not use him till the end. Last episode. Very last episode. You keep him until then. Just to everyone would be like, Plagueis is going to show up this episode. It would be the Mephisto thing all over again. It'd be like, Mephisto's going to show up. Plagueis is going to show up this episode, and then he shows up in the last episode, and then we're all just like,
oh shit,
what the hell?
And then season 3 is the Plagueis show. Then season 3 is the Plagueis show.
Or then Plagueis does get his own show.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty funny. Yeah, no, absolutely, I get that.
But to your first comment about your first comment, sorry, the first part about Vernestra, we also need to remember that the High Republic, the publishing initiative, doesn't end until 2025.
Right.
We still got a year left to go.
Yeah.
So that story could very well be told, of why she falls out of favor with the High Council and her relationship to the Senate. That story could still very well be told.
Yeah.
So I want to give the people who started to tell her story the opportunity to finish it and bridge that gap.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I'll agree there for sure. Be interested to see, because I don't know how close they're going to get. Where do you know? And this is me being a little bit of not oblivious, but a little bit behind on some of the High Republic stuff, because I know obviously the Acolyte takes place about 132 years before the Phantom Menace, or 100.
Is that how long it is? I thought it was just 100.
No, I'm sorry. You're right. It's 100 years, because it's like 132 before the Battle of Yavin. So it's like that. So it's 100 years before Phantom Menace. When does the High Republic season or High Republic Phase 2 take place? I know.
That's like 500. That's like, I think it's like 500 years before Phase 1.
Okay. I'm sorry. Before Phase 1, because Phase 1 is I'm in Phase 1 because that's the more recent one.
I think it's like 300-400 years before.
So is there a chance there's going to be a time jump? Because how much that time jump would have to be to deal with Vernestra the Stranger in the High Republic?
Oh, a few hundred years.
Right. So is that a possibility, you think? I mean, like, would the Nihil storyline last that long?
No. They move on.
That makes sense. Maybe we'll get
phase 3 is definitely going to be the end of the Nile. I'm not going to spoil anything, but
right, that makes sense. Well, maybe there could be a bridge novel or something if the Acolyte doesn't get to continue on.
Well, they just keep continuing telling the stories. You know, this is just one publishing initiative. They could also just be like, hey, this is the main story that we've told.
Yeah,
we're now gonna just do. I mean, we talked about it a few weeks ago, right? When we talked about how it's gonna run after this initiative's done. Like, they can still do comics, they can still do like offshoot stories. Maybe Vanessa gets her own novel. Maybe she gets her own comic line.
That is true. It's very kind of weird. Like we did mention it last time, like the High Republic Initiative, which is kind of a cool idea, is also just a smidge limiting at the time. But once the initiative is actually completed with its initial arc, then you can open it up to play within that time frame and have more stories told. Because like it's like having the original trilogy be its own kind of like set storyline, it's set like place. But once that's done, we've had plenty of stories in between, different people involved. Some of them involved in the actual High Republic Initiative, and some not, some like original characters and stuff. So you could do a lot with it. So I definitely think it's a open area that I'm looking forward to having an open area after the initial original arc is done for sure. As far as Vanessa Rose story go, I would be surprised if we get it in a book form eventually, or maybe a comic series or something like that. They seem to be more open to doing that kind of stuff, and it's always hard to tell what Disney and Lucasfilm are going to do as far as visually goes. You know, we've had some ideas about it, them pulling back a little bit, and if they pull back, that means less opportunity to do these kind of shows. They're going to kind of concentrate more on probably the bigger names, bigger type of productions. I'm guessing that's what we're going to do for a little while until we start getting back on more of a solid footing with things like things going on. Maybe the movies will do that too. Who knows? But I don't know. I go back and forth. What are your thoughts? Do we get an Acolyte season 2?
Yeah.
You think we do?
I think we do. Yeah. What would be the point in not? What?
Well, business-wise, if it didn't get enough views, potentially. Like I know that like there's a report that came out.
That's not true. It's the most viewed.
That was the original, but supposedly the finale only had like 4 million comparatively. Like it was like the.
I saw one today that it was the most viewed show last week.
Okay. I've heard that the total views were a lot less than like the end of Ahsoka or Andor, like the last show. Again, these are all reports coming out. Who knows what's official and what's not?
I'm pretty sure I saw one earlier that was like it was the most viewed show last week, and that is in line with like season 3 of The Bear coming out and House of the Dragon. So either way, it's probably done for a show that is not connected to the main storyline. What would be the point in not? You're just going to because then you have the visual of, oh, we just did the one season and we're just going to, look, this isn't Zaslav, that we're dealing with here. This is Filoni and Kathleen Kennedy.
Wow. Look at Boba Fett.
But they always said that was a limited series and that was a kind of bridge stop between the two.
I mean, I'm not saying either way. I'm not arguing. I'm just basically giving devil's advocate. I think there should be a second season. I don't know if there's going to be at this point. I'm kind of curious. I
think it'd be a dumb move if they didn't. I think it'd be very stupid if they didn't, because you're essentially just saying, "Oh yeah, we'll just go back to telling shows in the Skywalker saga. We'll go do a Plagueis show." Right. Why? Because it connects to the Star Wars. Because it connects to the Skywalker saga. No, that's a cheap cop out. Like, you've committed to it now.
It could be a way but honestly, it could be a way they do both. It could be a compromise kind of thing, kind of like what Dave Filoni did with Rebel season 2, for example. You can see the story continue, but the Acolyte season 2 having those more connections with the Plagueis edition with the.
Well, that's what they're doing with Andor, right? With Andor season 2, he probably stepped in and said, "All right, Tony, you've done what you wanted to do. Now let's start putting the pieces together."
Whatever.
I just think when you've got someone like Leslie Headland who loves the universe, has a genuine appreciation for the entire fandom at large, she's not out here like saying that people who just love the EU laws opinions are invalid. No, she's one of them.
Right.
I think when you have a creator like that who's so willing to play in the sandbox, let him do it, because otherwise you're just going to be like, it's just going to be Rian Johnson all over again. The story that Rian Johnson wanted to tell was a good story.
Right. I think the difference. I mean, it's hard. It's hard sitting here as an armchair quarterback. You know what I mean? It's like we don't have all of the information, like without knowing the exact statistics of the viewers, without knowing exact like idea of what the marketing is, not knowing the exact idea of what the stories we want to tell is. I agree with you that you want somebody who loves the story, and if she loves the EU, maybe her and Dave and Kathy can hit it off. Maybe they give her another season and say, you know what, maybe this didn't get as many views as we wanted potentially, but we'll give you one more season to complete your story and go on from there. We know Ahsoka's getting a second season, but then that almost needed to happen because Ahsoka's second season is going to lead into the movie that Dave Filoni's making, right? So you almost need that story to continue. And this has that problematic future where you could end this story right here, and there's no, even though there's a lot set up for season 2, it's not needed to continue. It could continue in other fashions and not mess up the storytelling. The idea is also that Disney wanted to pull some back. They want to do more different things. It's all there's a lot of stuff up there. I don't think some of it's out of, I think some of it might be out of Lucasfilm's control, which might be something to do with it. But which is why I go back and forth. I love for there to be a season 2. I think it makes sense to do one more season and plan on it being the final one. Plan on it being a 2 and done kind of thing. But I guess we'll have to wait because Leslie.
So I found the article that I mentioned earlier. It was a Rotten Tomatoes article that the Acolyte season 1 is the most popular and most watched show on streaming at the moment. It has beaten out Those About to Die season 1, The Boys season 4, Lady in the Lake season 1, The Bear season 3, House of the Dragon season 2, Cobra Kai season 6.
Can you send me that link?
These ones are like ones that I don't really know, but like if it's beating those shows, like that's huge. That says to me, even like with the numbers that it is pulling, if it's more popular than shows like that, like those, like especially House of the Dragon, which everyone is raving about, when you have like it's more popular than that says to me it's a no-brainer. Yeah, go for it. Keep taking swings. The thing that pisses me off is when people are like, Star Wars needs to take swings. Oh, not those kind of swings. You're swinging too much. Like pick one or the other, dude.
Huh. You know what? If you could send me that link, I'd like to read it. I did just see an article from Collider that say something that is still topping the chart, which is impressive. Despite preemptive outrage, the Acolyte thrives and is dominating the streaming charts. Okay. Well, if that's true, then absolutely make a second season. That leads me to even believe more than there is. I will say the one
in the chat for you to read.
Thank you. I do think the one really good thing about it is for sure, despite everything else, despite review bombing, despite the outrage of the haters didn't do themselves a favor because there's this metric that it seems like streamers. I'm an old guy. I have no idea. This is beyond me now. But I know there's metrics that go on about engagement and like good or bad. If people are talking about it, then that is a good thing for the business side. It's like, oh, they're talking about it. Doesn't matter what they're saying. It's just that many people are talking about it. So that is good for the show.
What was the old Eric Bischoff quote? Controversy creates cash.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. Everybody hit him like, no, I got it. People who are like kind of like whatever. I mean, you know what? I really got to check this out for myself now. Let's see. Yeah. That could be. Interesting conversation. I'm surprised I didn't see this in the earlier thing. Wow, that's actually pretty impressive. So hey, that's pretty cool. I gotta say.
The Boys is seeing it top The Boys season 4 on that list was surprising because The Boys hasn't missed. Like every season has been fantastic, and everyone has raved about The Boys. So and obviously the bear is incredible. The Bear is currently my favorite show like out right now, and for the Acolyte to be doing better than that and be more popular than that,
it seems like honestly, like actually looking at this article now, it's exactly what I was talking about. It's less about views because it says want to know what popular new TV shows this week are keeping watchers glued to the screen and Rotten Tomatoes users engaged on sites. So I think it's more about like how the engagement is. In that case, the Acolyte is on top because of the engagement.
And what's retaining viewers each time, as opposed to.
That's cool. That's a good idea. Hopefully that does work in their favor, and we'll get it soon. I mean, it did take a bit for Ahsoka to be announced, season 2 to be announced. So maybe that's the case. Maybe it's going to be something like that. But I'm a little more positive than I was about 5 minutes ago. So all right, I'll take that.
That's why I was like looking through it as you were talking. I was like, I gotta find this article because there's no way.
Interesting. Interesting indeed. All right. Yeah, it is number one. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, anything else you want to say about Leslie Headland's discussion, or shall we move on to the big
No,
story
we
of the
can
week?
move on. Just like we had this conversation a long time ago. One of the very earliest episodes when we were talking about like the kind of the state of Star Wars, the state of the fandom, and everything. And I said to you, Lucasfilm need to let these creators tell their story and finish their story. This is a prime example of that. Let Leslie Headland finish. Let her finish the story. Damn it.
All right. I'm agreeing that let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah, like it's funny. It's all about engagement, not viewership. But these people who hate it don't understand that engagement is good. Controversy creates cash. So who knows? I think that'd be actually a great thing. I would love it if the haters hating on it is what got them a season 2.
I mean, what was it last year when it came out that Obi-Wan Kenobi was the most viewed show on Disney Plus, and like Ahsoka was second, and everyone was still talking shit about it. And I want to shout out John Hoey as well, because he said that he showed a link, he retweeted a link, John Hoey from the Resistance broadcast, and it was like the latest episode of House of the Dragon got review bombed,
right?
Because there was 2 women kissing in it. And then he looked on the location of where the review bomb was coming from, and it was all like Saudi Arabia and the Middle Eastern countries. So I'd be very curious to have a look and see where the review bombing is coming from for the Acolyte.
That's a good point. Interesting. Huh. All right. Well, okay. I guess that's what we'll end up with. Maybe next
before we continue, I should say that's not a slight on those countries. Those countries have different values to ours that they may not necessarily agree with. While I, say whatever you will about that, but
absolutely. Hey. All right, then let's move on then to our big story of the week. Is actually all about comics. We don't get to talk about Star Wars comics very often on here. I like to do it more. Part of the problem is I just haven't been keeping up, and that's not because they're bad. It's just because I chose to do something, like I've mentioned a few times. I chose to go back and read everything through from beginning, Legends and canon both, and going from the beginning timeline wise and moving forward, which means I've stopped where I was reading to go back and start all over again, including books and comics together in chronological order. So I will get back to where we were, but this is actually going to be tempting me a bit to maybe read something now and then read it later on when I get there again, because we have a couple of announcements. The first one is a interesting one for sure. The first announcement that was made was that there is going to be a new Ewoks mini 4-issue miniseries set post Return of the Jedi, with the creative team helmed by Steve Orlando, who wrote the Life Day special and Darth Vader Black, White, and Red. And he also does work with Marvel with Scarlet Witch and Spider-Man 2099. And it says that this series will take place in the aftermath of the Return of the Jedi, as the Ewoks must once again stand against a caravan of carnage to save their home. I like that's a nice little reference there. Caravan of carnage, not caravan of courage, but they'll need that caravan of courage to fight the caravan of carnage. Fans can expect new insights into Ewok culture, the return of friendly faces like Wicket, and the introduction of all new Ewok heroes. A team of Imperial-led bounty hunters and scavengers arrive on the forest moon of Endor, searching for a secret cache of Imperial weaponry. Are they prepared to face off against the battle-ready Ewoks who took down so many of their ranks? Who is this mysterious new warrior Ewok returning to Bright Tree Village, and what is their connection to Wicket W. Warwick?
Are we getting a Wicket origin story?
I might be getting something. That could be pretty cool. I mean, it's kind of funny because you realize that the Ewoks have had a lot of play in the Legends era back in the day, but then it almost is like everybody turned against them when they got too old and be like, oh, Ewoks suck and everything else and whatever. But Ewoks had a cartoon, they had a comic book series of their own, they had the 2 TV movies, which I said on another podcast at one point when I was young. I think I almost liked Battle for Endor almost as much, if not more, than Return of the Jedi at one point. I loved the Battle for Endor.
It's great.
It's fun. You got Wilbur Brimley and Teak, and it's a lot of fun in there.
Look, I am fully with everyone that says that the Ewok movies are great. I'm with you. One day we're gonna discuss those films. One day.
One day. We definitely will. I would absolutely do that because it's been a long time since I've watched them. I'd love to watch them again at some point.
I just want these comics to answer one question, and it's the question that everyone wants answered. Why did they have that dress that fit Leia so perfectly?
That's a good question.
Did they eat that lady?
That is a question that needs to be answered. Also, I want to say shout out, congratulations to Jennifer Landa from Force Center, because we know how much she loves the Ewoks.
She does love the Ewoks. Yep. One day I will get my Jawa comics or Jawa show or.
The really interesting
justice for the Jedi, justice for the Jawas.
The really interesting thing about this to me is that it almost feels like they're actually going to take it seriously, which is a different approach on it. Like previously, it was definitely very kiddie, very fun, very silly at times. The Ewoks comic strips, the comic books from before, were very young age based. Nisa, the Bright Tree Warriors, all that stuff, fun. And the same thing with the show, but it was definitely a Saturday morning cartoon type show. This reads like a attempt to be serious while still recognizing the silliness of the past and kind of making it work in a modern time. And I'm fascinated to see if it works. I'm definitely interested for a 4-issue miniseries. Absolutely, I'm all in. So,
yeah, well, I would love. You remember back in the day when newspapers were a thing? For you younger generations, we used to get our news by reading this thing called a newspaper, which was like a giant comic but with the actual news in it. Imagine if every comic run. Remember, when you would have the strip of comics, it would be like Snoopy or something. Oh, yeah. You just have the little, or for me, the big one I used to collect from my granddad's newspapers was the Wallace and Gromit comic strips.
Fair. Yep.
Imagine if every comic or every graphic novel at the end, we just got a little comic strip of Ewoks or the Jawas.
Absolutely. All right, some more continuation of this. This is a 2-part storytelling. Comic-Con is coming up soon, but they have
weekend, right?
Yes, it's this weekend.
If you are going, tickets to Mos Eisley are available now. Go get tickets. Go to Mos Eisley because it's a damn good time.
Also, see Mark Ellis and Ken Knapsack in the area as well in the comic.
And go see Mark Ellis and Ken Knapsack as well.
Crew. So they already kind of pre-teased what they're going to be talking about, and basically Marvel has announced that the new era of Star Wars comic book storytelling arrives in October of 2024. We mentioned it before that Star Wars number 50 and Darth Vader number 50 was going to end the current era of storytelling, except between Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. And we a couple of weeks back, we talked about it and predicted where they were going to go. Were they going to go back to the prequel era? Are they going to go back between 1 and 2? Are they going to go forward and beyond Return of the Jedi? Well, that was settled with a poster of Darth Vader's burnt helmet. We are going post Return of the Jedi. And we're going to be playing around with a lot of different things that we haven't really touched on yet, which is kind of cool. I mean, Marvel did touch base a little bit in that era before. We had the Shattered Empire books with Poe Dameron's parents. We talked about Operation Cinder and Battlefront 2. And we've actually, obviously, in some books had the Battle of Jakku, but never really fully on anywhere. But that's actually what this is going to be diving deep into. That was one of the big updates they had recently. Is they're having the Battle of Jakku trilogy, a trilogy of 4 issues of comics, a trilogy of different issues of comics. You're going to have, let's see, where is it? It's going to be, the first one's called Insurgency, I believe.
Insurgency Rising, and that's the one I'm looking forward to most.
Yes, absolutely. That's kind of a cool thing as well. There's also a couple of other ones that are going to come out. There's going to be 2 other ones. The next one's going to be Republic Under Siege, and then Last Stand. They're all 4-issue miniseries. They're all aimed to be released in 2024, which means that that's a lot to come out. It starts in October, but I mean, I'm sure maybe it goes into 2025 a little bit, I'm sure. But there's going to be a big trade paperback in April of 2025. But let's talk about that era. It's going to be starring core characters like Luke and Leia, as well as new heroes and villains who were instrumental during this thrilling period. The 3 Battle of Jakku series will bridge the gap between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy like never before, revealing key insights behind the aftermath of the Battle of Endor and the Empire's demise, including the Emperor's secret contingency plans, and introduce the shocking, power-hungry threats that emerged this time of uncertainty. And also specifically, they had a teaser. It says, in the wake of the Battle of Endor, can Luke, Leia, and the nascent New Republic stave off an unexpected and deadly new threat? Defiant Imperial takes center stage and goes on the offensive against the New Republic. Leia makes a startling discovery of the forests of Endor. Who are the mysterious and deadly acolytes of the beyond? And what is this new villain's connection to Darth Vader? All of this post Return of the Jedi storytelling begins. Acolytes of the Beyond. Well, I know some people actually just listen to Force Center, and Jennifer Lynn was like, why would we name it the Acolytes? Because we just had a show called The Acolytes. Kind of confusing timeline-wise, but actually the Acolytes of Beyond were, I think Ken mentioned this, they're the group from the Aftermath books. They were named that before, right back when. Which, by the way, I have grown fond of the Aftermath books. I remember when the Aftermath books came out, I didn't love the first one. But I really did like the second and third one, and definitely the characters grew on me, which retroactively made the first one better. That sometimes happens when like book 2 and 3 gets you into the characters more. You can kind of go back and forgive some of the stuff you didn't like about the first one in a way. But the Acolytes of the Beyond was always something I kind of wanted to get more of because they had like Vader's lightsaber, I believe, and so I'm very interested to see how they come into play. I'm fascinated in this. I think this is a good decision. I think we have so little in this era. Like we didn't need to go in the prequel era. Like didn't need to go between 2 and 3 anymore. We didn't need to go between 3 and 4 because that era has been. I mean, I always like stories there, but it's been mined to death in a way. We've had so many stories take place there. This is some place that desperately needs a little bit of expansion on. I also would have taken, like I said, between 1 and 2, but this is actually more exciting to me. The only problem I have, if there is a problem to be had, is because if they're going to do all this stuff in the Battle of Jakku is such a big moment in history. I was wanting like an animated series taking place there, so I don't know if this is going to step on the toes of that, or if this means that we're not going to get an animated series here ever or anything like that.
Probably not.
Which possibly could be the case, although maybe we could, because we know the Aftermath book take place in the Battle of Jakku, or the Lost Stars took place at the end of the Battle of Jakku.
Yeah, Battlefront 2.
Had some touches on it. So we could see some different things potentially. But either way, I think it's potentially. Either way, I'm glad we're getting stories here finally, because we've been looking for that for a while. We kind of had Return of the Jedi, and then we had The Mandalorian, and there was like nothing between for a long time, minus Shattered Empire right after. But like it just kind of didn't last there for too long. A little bit of the Poe Dameron comics as well that technically took place during some of that time between 6 and 7, which we didn't know about. But I think this is definitely an underutilized era, and I want to see more of it. The good news is also animated series wise, that means we could skip this era and just have the Luke and Ben starting the Jedi anew storyline for the animated series. Potentially, that's not something we think about. Either way, though, I'm excited about this. It's just actually very much tempting me to go back and start reading like as they come out. We'll have to see if I can withstand or I can catch up on the Star Wars comics from before. What do you think about this? Are you excited about this era? Do you like
I'm in two minds. I'll be honest, I'll be in two minds because of the first one, Insurgency Rising. We see, what the fuck was the dude? The Governor Adelhard, I think, is the new bad guy. Mm-hmm. They're playing a lot to the old Star Wars Uprising game. And lately I've been kind of going, and I want to shout out Nitroid, Apache Smash, Fingers, and Days Ahead from the Kojima Frequency podcast. Been talking a lot about preservation of media, we have you and PJ talk about it a lot, of the preservation of physical media and these things that we watch, and how to preserve digital media as well, especially with video games. A lot of video games now are kind of like a game as a service, in that they're available for a while, and if they don't do very well, they're pulled from the streaming services and they're essentially gone forever.
Right.
Star Wars Uprising was one of those games, and I didn't get to play it a lot. I kind of got it at the end of its run, but it was one of those first games where they were like, this isn't doing very well, we're going to pull it and shut down all the servers, and like that, boom, it was gone. Like you can't play it anymore. It's not on Steam. It's not on anywhere. I like that they're pulling from that story. I like that they're pulling characters from that story. They're probably going to like utilize more of the smugglers and the pirates that had to help out the rebels in that story.
Right.
What pisses me off is you couldn't have just done that in the game. Like there was no. It speaks to like picking and choosing how you tell the stories, and like I'm not okay with it. And that was a good game that quite a lot of people actually enjoyed. When these comics got announced, I saw like Alex Damon and Sage from the Uplink podcast. They were talking about, oh, this is cool. They're touching on Star Wars Uprising. This is cool. And I was just like, okay, so then what was the point in pulling the game? Why? Because it didn't do very well, because it didn't make enough money. Like, people put in so much effort and hard work into those games, and they just pulled them because it wasn't making enough money. And now, because it benefits the comics and, you know, telling these stories, it just speaks to a wider conversation of like preservation of media and games not being. And I know a lot of people just consider video games as just games, where, like, to me, growing up playing games like Metal Gear Solid, where there was a story told through them, that I'm like, they're just as much art as they are entertainment in games. And I think a lot of people, it did rub me a little like, what the fuck was the point in getting rid of the game then, if you're just gonna do this? Like,
well, not being a gamer, not that I know of exactly, is there a way they could have just kept the game going without keeping?
Yeah, just leave the servers up. They did the same thing with Metal Gear Solid Online. They took it down because it wasn't doing well, but there is a whole community of modders that essentially recreated the game by themselves and put it up. And now we see lately a lot of, like, with Star Wars Bounty Hunters, and they brought back the classics of the old Battlefront games.
Yep.
They tried to port them over, and every time it just fails miserably. So I'm just like, you should have just left it. Just leave it alone. If it doesn't do well, that's fine. But someone's still going to watch. Think about the amount of, like, classic films that are now lost to time,
right?
Because some studio or someone deemed that, oh, no one's going to watch these. That's fair. We can stop selling even physical media, right? Because all these Blu-rays and DVDs that, like, everyone's preserving, they have a shelf life too of like 10, 15 years before they start to decay. So you have to keep updating this stuff.
Yeah.
And it could just be a case of a studio being like, they're not selling anymore, or people aren't watching this on streaming anymore. Let's just tank it.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. So I understand that. I mean, I guess it's better to have the characters and stuff at least they go on to degrees. I get that in a way, but
and that's why I'm in both minds, because it is pretty cool, and I do want more storytelling post Return of the Jedi, because it's such a, like, bountiful tree to pull from, because there's so, like, other than the EU, there's so, like, little storytelling in there. So I'm all for it. It's like, I'm bitter. I'm a little petty this time.
A little petty. It's okay. A little Tom Petty. Anyway, I think we should do some. I can't wait for the Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con. So I think we're going to get some more news about this stuff, and some more book news, hopefully, as well, which would be cool. I'm looking forward to some more publishing news as it comes out. And I'm hoping also we get a little more. I'm hoping that we get an announcement for an animated series soon. Just give me a tease of what we're doing. That's all. I just want to know a tease. Give me something to look forward to that way. But yeah. All that is going to be the news for the week. It's time to get into our main topic, our favorite crawls of the Star Wars universe. We decided to do our favorite 3 crawls. I did not rank them as the 3, 2, 1. I just kind of took my favorite 3. So I don't. If you did, that's fine.
I did 3, 2, 1.
That's fine. You can do it that way. Mine are all number 1. So why don't you go first then with your number 3?
My number 3 I picked was Empire Strikes Back.
Empire Strikes Back, not in my list. Talk to me about it, man.
Okay, so we have. It is a dark time for the rebellion. Although the Death Star has been destroyed, Imperial troops have driven the rebel forces from their hidden base and pursued them across the galaxy. Evading the dreadful Imperial Starfleet, a group of freedom fighters led by Luke Skywalker has established a new secret base on the remote ice world of Hoth. The evil Lord Darth Vader, obsessed with finding young Skywalker, has dispatched thousands of remote probes into the far reaches of space. Now, what it says to me right off the bat is Vader is obsessed with finding Luke.
Yeah.
Old habits don't die at all. We saw what happened with his last obsession.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he's obsessed with, and there's been like comic books where they've told the story about what happened when Vader found out that he had a kid. He went on a absolute rampage and nearly ended up killing Palpatine at one point. Yeah. But a dark time for the rebellion, that just spells bad news. Like, even more so when you're a kid and you have like no idea that the rebels weren't exactly squeaky clean. They did some shit too. Yeah. Like their hands have blood on them as well. But when you're a kid and you see that, you think, oh shit, the bad guys are winning. That's not good. And like, the worst thing for me is I hate the cold. I hate ice.
Me too.
So the mention of a whole planet of ice, I'm like Sanka in Cool Runnings. I'm like, ice. You mean igloos and Eskimos and penguins and ice?
I never thought the day we did quite Cool Runnings to The Empire Strikes Back, but here we are. No, I love the Empire Strikes Back crawl. One of the ones that I considered in my three favorite. I think it was one of the last ones I eliminated. I love a crawl. I'm going to talk this in general. I love a crawl that's, simple but direct, but kind of tells enough of the story, but doesn't get too hokey at times or it's too boring of a setup. And this one is a good one. It's a dark time for the rebellion sets you up, right? It's a dark time for the rebellion. Sets you right up for where it's going to go, right? Death Star has been destroyed. Imperial troops have driven the rebel forces from their hidden base. They're on the run. That sets up the movie quite well. Pursued them across the galaxy, evading the dreaded Imperial Starfleet. I love the hyperbole. I mean, it's not really hyperbole, but the way they say it, the way you hear it in your head, and the voice that I speak, it's that, very hyperbolic way to talk. It's a good one. It's a very good one. So I'll give you that one. Let me say, for one of my top three, I'm going to go with the original one from A New Hope, because honestly, it's the OG and it sets the tone of what the crawl should be. It is a period of civil war. Rebel spaceships striking from a hidden base have won their first victory against the evil Galactic Empire. During the battle, rebel spies managed to steal secret plans to the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star, an armored space station with enough power to destroy an entire planet. Pursued by the Empire's sinister agents, Princess Leia races home aboard her starship, custodian of the stolen plans that can save her people and restore freedom to the galaxy. God, I love that. And the reason why I love
Is that your Admiral Yularen impression?
That's not an impression, but it's along the same line. Like I say, it's Admiral Yularen's like friend he hung out with at the Imperial Academy. When because they had a lot in common. I love the fact that it sets up everything, and it's helped by the fact that we've never seen a Star Wars before. Like, this is the first thing we're seeing in Star Wars, and here it is. It's setting it up so boom, Civil War. Rebel spaceships, hidden base, evil Galactic Empire. Right there, you're like, okay, I'm in. Tell me more. Rebel spies stealing secret plans to a big the Death Star. What the hell is the Death Star? Oh, it's an armored space station with enough power to destroy an entire planet? Give it to me. Yes. Pursued by the Empire's sinister agents, Princess Leia. Princess Leia, but warrior princess sounds like awesome. Custodian, she's racing home. Custodian of the stolen plans can save her people, restore their freedom to the galaxy. And then it leads into the first thing you have, the Tantive 4 passing by. You have the start. Like, what a great way to set up the entire thing and set up the entire saga. Simple, direct, more like macro than micro, but that's what you need. It's just, if you don't need any too much, sometimes the crawls can get into too much detail, I think. In this case, it got just enough detail to get you intrigued and move through it. So that's why episode 4. One of my favorites.
It speaks as well to what is so great about Star Wars. If you put any Star Wars in front of someone who's watching it for the first time, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, go back to like A New Hope, and I've mentioned it a few times on this show. When Obi-Wan talks about the Clone Wars, it's essentially Marty McFly in Back to the Future saying, you're not ready for that yet, but your kids are going to love it.
Absolutely. All right, Matty, what's your number 2?
My number 2, The Phantom Menace.
Okay, go ahead.
You know what?
I'm going to interject something. I want you to know something.
That's your number 1?
No, this is one of my least favorites. But that's okay. Go ahead. I'm interested to see this.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So Turmoil has engulfed the Galactic Republic. The taxation of trade routes to outlying star systems is in dispute. Hoping to resolve the matter with a blockade of deadly battleships, the greedy Trade Federation has stopped all shipping to the small planet of Naboo. While the Congress of the Republic endlessly debates this alarming chain of events, the Supreme Chancellor has secretly dispatched 2 Jedi Knights, the guardians of peace and justice, to settle the conflict. Now, let me be honest with you, PLD. When I was thinking about this, when I was a kid, I had no fucking idea what any of those words meant. Taxation, trade routes, Trade Federation, Congress, none of that meant shit to me. But now, as an adult who is fairly political minded, you only have to look at what happened in the US Congress today to read that crawl and be like, this motherfucker George Lucas is on to something. He's like, it's all there. Like, to everyone who says keep politics out of my Star Wars, it's right there. Corrupt politicians, greedy corporations, taxing like a small planet of people and like blockading them from getting like actual supplies that they need to live. Like, it's all there.
Right.
It's literally there in black and yellow.
Fair. Good way to describe it. I have to say, the reasons you say is why I don't like it.
Is why you don't like it. I thought as much.
For me, it's like the kid. It's the kid in me wants to go back and watch Star Wars. Not that I need politics out of Star Wars. I love the politics in Star Wars, but I like it a little more. This is like too much, like what I said before about Episode 4. This is the too many details. It's too bogged down in detail for me. It's not overt enough. It's like, turmoil is engulfed the clash. Okay, that's not a bad line. Taxation of trade routes to outlying star systems in dispute. I'm like, God, that's boring. That sounds boring.
I had no idea what that meant.
That's one of the things. I'm like, we went from like, sinister agents of the Empire racing down. We're both fighting, striking armored battle stations. This is resolved the matter with a blockade. The Trade Federation has stopped all shipping.
Here's the thing. How did you feel reading that? And then suddenly you're watching the movie and you hear the name Anakin Skywalker in there.
Oh, like, well, yeah.
Oh, shit, we're getting that story?
Well, yeah, that I know. Like, hey, I love the film. I enjoy the film.
I know you do. But it's kind of like that this was a ploy to be like sleight of hand, be like, oh yeah, this is about, which it is. Like, Star Wars has always been political. Let's put that out there. But like, to be like, oh, great, this is about taxation of trade routes and send Jedi to deal with political matters. Great. And then you get Anakin, you get essentially the villain origin story of the greatest cinematic villain of all time.
That's fair.
In Darth Maul.
This is fair. Nice play there. I see you tried to sneak it in there. Very nice, very subtle. I will say, okay, let's move on to the next one for me. For me, my next favorite one that I have to talk about, it's Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And it's one that when I first read it, I was like, God, this is so cheesy and over the top. And now that's exactly why I love it. Like, I love it so much because of that. Whoa! Like,
okay, I gotta stop you real quick. I gotta do the same thing for you. It's my number one.
Let's talk about it. Hey, it's a good time we did it then, too. War! The Republic is crumbling under attacks by the ruthless Sith Lord, Count Dooku. There are heroes on both sides. Evil is everywhere. In a stunning mood, the fiendish droid leader, General Grievous, has swept into the Republic capital and kidnapped Chancellor Palpatine, leader of the Galactic Senate. As a separatist droid army attempts to flee the besieged capital with their valuable hostage, 2 Jedi Knights lead a desperate mission to rescue the captive Chancellor. And that's exactly what I mean. Let's look at that last line versus the Episode 1 line. We have Episode 1. So, Supreme Chancellor secretly dispatched 2 Jedi Knights, the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy, to settle the conflict.
That is literally
2 Jedi Knights lead a desperate mission to rescue the captive Chancellor.
So you want the full whack. You don't just want like the lead into the story. You want the tell me what I'm going to see.
Yes, I want you to shake me. I want you to get me excited. I want this to be a hype up. I want it to be the music playing when Triple H comes out or The Rock comes out or something. I want the
time to play the game. Dun, dun. Okay, hear me out.
Okay.
Is that not the job of the trailer?
Of course it is. Of course it is. But there's nothing like me sitting down in front. That movie begins. Star Wars playing. I'm like, yeah, baby, give it to me. I'm already hyped up. Like that Star Wars music plays. That Star Wars comes across the screen. I'm like, yeah, give it to me more. And then I get the Phantom Menace. Like, okay, cool. This one, I'm like, yeah, let's do it, baby. Let's bring it up. Give me that. Give me it. Evil is everywhere. Heroes on both sides. This is an awesome conflict. I can't wait to see what's going to go on now.
Yeah, this is my number one because it does. First thing, I'm going to go say some homework to do after this episode.
That's fair.
I can't remember where I watched it. There is a supercut of the Clone Wars set to Edwin Starr's War. It is the most badass thing I have ever fucking seen.
Oh, I'll take a look at that. I love that shit.
Because it has the Attack of the Clones trailer in it. It has the Tarkovsky stuff in there, and it has the Clone Wars show, like a supercut of loads of stuff. But Edwin Starr's War, it's almost as cool as watching the trench run set to Danger Zone. Have you ever seen that video?
I have. Like,
oh my god, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
So cool.
But
so cool.
You've got it all in there, right? You've got the popcorn factor, the drawing you in, but then you also have heroes on both sides. Yeah. Evil is everywhere. Like it kind of plays also to the what was given in the Phantom Menace crawl of like, look, there's evil on the side of the Republic as well. Like what they're doing isn't great, and obviously we explore it later on in later storytelling in the Clone Wars and in Tales of the Jedi and everything. But to some people, Grievous was a hero. To some people, Dooku was a hero. Not to us, because we know that ultimately Obi-Wan Kenobi was on the side of the light. Anakin Skywalker was on what he thought was the side of light until the end of the movie. Spoiler alert for a movie that's fucking years and years and years old. But do you know why I love this crawl so much?
Why
it's because what happens after. It pans down to what could possibly be the sickest shot in every movie, every show, just pans down to Coruscant and a massive space battle above it.
Yeah, it is one of the best. It leads into it so well. The production is so good. We know it's already my favorite episode of the trilogy by far. I mean, this is my second favorite movie of the trilogy, or in the whole saga. My second favorite movie of the saga altogether. So I totally get what you mean by that for sure. And again, I know it's not about the movie because it's not about the movie. If it was about the movie, Empire Strikes Back would be right up there for me. But it's about this crawl matches the movie perfectly. Little cheesy, not gonna lie. War. It's cheesy. It's over the top, cartoonish, but man,
we are children. We are disciples of action movies, dude. This is right up our alley.
Right. Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. It's action movie anatomy style. Exactly. For sure. All right. That's cool. Since we already told your number one, why don't you? Do you have any honorable mentions that you want to throw out there?
No, go for your third one, dude.
Okay. I will give you one honorable mention actually before I go to my third one. You know what? The one I had a hard time getting rid of, and I only really got rid of it because it wasn't really technically a crawl, was I did love the simplisticness and the how it opened was the Acolyte opening. I really like just 100 years before the rise of the Empire. It is a time of peace. The Jedi Order and the Galactic Republic have prospered for centuries without war. But in the dark corners of the galaxy, a powerful few learn to use the Force in secret. One of them, a lone assassin, risks discovery to seek revenge. Simple, simplistic, but yet like, oh, tell me more.
You know what I love most about the TV crawls, both the Acolyte and Ahsoka, is they both look like they were written on Windows Movie Maker. It's like really a caption over the top of it. Like Dave Filoni just opened the CapCut app on his phone, had the opening scene, and then just put a caption over the top of it, like an Instagram reel.
Right.
And he was just like, right, there you go, edit that into the show.
Brilliant, effing brilliant, awesome. All right, the last one I did want to bring up. I actually impressively, and I did not plan this at all. I had one from the prequel trilogy, one from the the original trilogy, and I have one from the sequel trilogy.
Are you about to say the one that I think you're about to say?
I don't know which one I think it is, but
Someone Speaks.
no, that is not the one. I did think about that one. I do love
That's
that
my
opening
honorable
line.
mention, because opening with the line "The dead speak."
That was actually one of the last ones I eliminated for sure. I do like that as well. The only reason I didn't is by the end it kind of breaks down just a little bit with some things about like
Yeah.
But overall, I definitely like that. That's one of my favorite opening lines of the Pro for sure. My favorite from the sequel trilogy is The Force Awakens. Comes out just boom. Luke Skywalker has vanished.
Yeah.
Oh shit, what's going on? In his absence, the sinister First Order has risen from the ashes of the Empire and will not rest until Skywalker, the last Jedi, has been destroyed. With the support of the Republic, General Leia Organa leads a brave resistance, desperate to find her brother Luke and gain his help in restoring peace and justice to the galaxy. Leia has sent her most daring pilot on a secret mission to Jakku, where an old ally has discovered a clue to Luke's whereabouts. I love. The funny thing is, like, it's actually the movie itself is honestly less about a lot of this crowd because it's a big Luke Skywalker opening, and we don't get Luke until the very end. But
You also get a drop for the next movie title in there as well.
Exactly, that was kind of fun too. I wonder if that was planned or if like Ryan went.
Oh, it had to have been, dude. That was no mistake.
I do love how this sets up the new era. All fun is like we know our hero of the previous trilogy nowhere to be found. Leia's desperate to find him. Only he can bring peace back to the galaxy. Without him, the Empire is rising again in the name of the First Order. A lot of cool stuff in that. Resistance. What's that? General Leia Organa. What's going on there? It's intrigue enough to develop into the story. I really like that one quite a bit, even if the movie kind of went a little bit different direction, I think, than what this kind of focuses on, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But for the crawl itself, I do like episode 7 for sure.
It does do a lot to set up the Luke story arc. I know a lot of people, myself included, don't put a lot of stock into the crawls. We probably should, because they are just the once upon a time in that was always what George wanted the crawls to be. They wanted the once upon a time, and I'm like, yeah, all right, get to the story.
Yeah.
But if you look at like what it says in there, Luke Skywalker has vanished. He's the only one that can bring down the First Order. Well, he's not. And that kind of sets up the folly. Why did he go to kill his nephew? Because he felt like he was the only one who could stop the darkness that was growing inside of his nephew. Mm-hmm. Never mind it being a Sith Lord or an agent of evil. It was his nephew. Mm-hmm. But he immediately jumped to being, I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm the only one that could stop this. I'm the hero. And that cruel kind of, it starts to sow that little seed in there. So that is pretty cool. I do like that. And also just like reading it back and you're like, what do you mean they're in trouble again? Like they just won. Like
right.
You guys must really suck.
That's a fair point. That's a very fair point.
Like you just beat the Empire. Now you're the rebellion again.
Right. But the resistance instead. There are some things that definitely I actually agree with. Probably it's not. It's my if I did rank it, this would have been number 3 on the list for that reason. There is some a little bit left stuff to desire.
I think that adds to the story because you're like, Jesus Christ, again.
Fair enough. I do want to say we are a very positive podcast. We always try to put forth the best because there's so much hatred out there in general. But doesn't mean we can't make fun on things we love. I still like to do that every once in a while. And with regards to that, I will tell you that my least favorite of the type crawls, and I say that because it's not from the movie, not from the main movies. It's the Solo one. I want to say we were reading the Solo one, and I love the movie Solo. Don't
let John Hoey hear you blaspheming Solo.
I will tell him to his face. I'm not blaspheming Solo. Just that little opening word. It's not even really a crawl, but it is a lawless time. Okay, crime syndicates compete for resources. Food, medicine, and hyperfuel.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
So it's doing what you want. It's telling you the story that is currently, they're setting up the story that you want to know. There's action.
I just food, medicine, and hyperfuel.
Yeah.
Okay, resources. Okay. On the ship, this is like a board game, it sounds like. The shipbuilding planet of Corellia, the foul Lady Proxima, who is barely in the movie, by the way, forces runaways into a life of crime in exchange for shelter and protection. On these mean streets, a young men. But I like this last line. I do like the last line. On these mean streets, a young man fights for survival, but yearns to fly among the stars. A little cheesy, but I do like the last line.
I love that.
Last line. On these mean streets, a young man fights for survival, but yearns to fly among the stars. I trust the first part was, and like I said, the first part sounds more like a game than a movie. It sounds like you're going to be fighting about resources, and there's like the foul Lady Proxima gets her credit in the big capital letters, and not worthy. I don't know.
Let me play devil's advocate on that.
All right, go ahead.
How much was Dooku in Revenge of the Sith?
That's fair, but he actually had been in episode 2 enough to kind of he had been around enough.
Okay, Grievous.
Oh, he becomes the main baddie after Dooku goes.
I mean, it's not even. I didn't even have it on my list as a call. I'm just like debating for debate's sake here.
That's fine. That's fair. And I could honestly say that like I might even be hypocritical because it does.
I'm just fucking.
No. I'm saying like reading it, I could be hypocritical because it does do a lot of stuff I like, but for whatever reason, I just never liked
it. I'm just fucking breaking your balls.
All right, I think that's gonna do it for us this week, man. Another good time, a little fun. I like the silly category sometimes. I think we should do more silliness, especially while we're waiting for next conversations we have. Well, next week is Comic-Con, or this weekend is Comic-Con, so that would probably be a big topic next week. We'll probably get into the news and do all the breakdowns of everything we learned from Comic-Con, whether it be books, movies, comics, animated shows, games, whatever.
Lucasfilm gonna be at?
I
know some of the actors are, because apparently some of them are going to be showing up at Mosh Isley. So
I don't think there's not like a Lucasfilm film. We're not going to get any film announcements or anything like that. The publishing is going to be the big thing for them at San Diego Comic-Con for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if we get some announcements around the same time though. Maybe like an animated series potentially that could make it. It's
pretty Marvel heavy this year, right?
It is very Marvel heavy, so I would be surprised to. Yeah, that's probably what it's going to be, and probably save it for another thing. I mean, I think we're ramping up for Celebration next year. Probably, unfortunately, I'm not going to be there. Damn good. Anyway,
why are you not going to be there?
I can't afford that, man. I can't afford it,
dude. It's so much cheaper.
Still can't afford it.
My 3-day ticket last year for London was £160 for the 3 days. This year, nearly 70. Like not even 70.
Oh, the tickets to Celebration isn't the issue.
Here's the thing: hotel room. I got like a big suite overlooking the harbor. Barely even cracked 300.
300 a night.
So I'm just saying.
300 a night, though, right?
No, for the whole thing.
For the whole thing, £300 for how many days?
For the whole thing, but I booked it way in advance, so right. Probably like
That's right. You will be our man on the ground for that week, for sure.
Just come to Japan. Get some culture in your life.
Easy to say.
Get some culture. You can have my ticket. I'm just going to be looking for Hideo Kojima around there. Anyway, I know that's all I'm going to Celebration for, because I see him. He's liking the tweets about the Celebration announcements.
Oh, he's definitely going. Absolutely.
Of course, he's going to go.
All right, man. Well, next week we'll talk about the Comic-Con stuff or whatever breaking news happens from there. Matty, where can the folks find you?
You can find me on my social media handles at Matty Mourner. You can find my band Mourner, Mourner, on all streaming services, at Mourner Band on all social media. And you can find me here Wednesdays for Holy Snokes and something that Paul's about to tell you about.
Yeah. Paul_Denuzio on Twitter. Find me all over this channel, of course. Holy Snokes every week, like we mentioned. I also do review every other week, although we had to take a couple weeks off due to scheduling. We should be back next week to dive back into review V 2009 reboot. Seamaker White Dudes on Film will be returning very soon in the beginning of August with the John Wick franchise, and then the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, and then potentially the X-Men franchise after that. We're kind of in talks to do a couple different things. Should be cool.
I will be waiting my invitation for the John Wick.
Fair enough. And besides that, we have I do my Crown Jewels every week. That's the Queen podcast on the sister YouTube channel on its own audio feed, of course. This week we are doing, what are we doing this week? Need Your Loving Tonight, which is a pure, perfect pop song written by John Deacon. if the Beatles played by a hard rock band, pretty much. That's how I kind of view the song. Very Beatles-esque influence for sure. I really like it. It's a really good power pop song. And yeah, then we got another special. Because the review it was canceled this week and was pushed back, I am going to slide something into that slot so you're not missing out on PLD Project content on Thursday. That would have happened. We're just going to have a different kind of content, not anything about V. This is the thing I've talked about a few times now. Myself, Matty Gunner, Ken Knapsack, the debut of the One-Offs. This is the One-Offs show where I'm going to be inviting guests on. I'm going to talk about stuff near and dear to their hearts. Matty and Ken, of course, we had a great conversation about Oasis. Other ones we have coming up in Sure We Are. I'm talking with Mark Ellis to do about something with Van Halen. I'm talking to a bunch of other people, Brad Gilmore maybe, to do Back to the Future. A lot of fun going on, but I know for sure this first one, Thursday at 3 o'clock Eastern, will drop. Also, there's a link to our Spotify playlist in there that we came up with, the best of Oasis, the One-Offs of best of Oasis. I will link that into the show notes. It was a great conversation. I had a great time with Matty. Great conversation. And it should be a fun time for sure. So hopefully you stay tuned for that and you like that and subscribe to that on the audio feed as well. When I have the feed, I'll put that in the show notes as well. Anything else, Matty? Are we good to go?
Nah, we're good. We're good to go. That's
all right.
Punch it, Chewy.
Well, then, of course, as always.
May the force be with you. Always.